So today's session is about metacognition, and the next one in our professional development series, but all of them seem to be linked together in some ways that really are not even all that subtle. So metacognition. And so what we're going to think about today is a definition of metacognition. We're going to look at metacognitive awareness and consider the connections to both relevancy and transparency in our instruction, and have a conversation about some reflective concepts. So, metacognition, what does it mean? Do you use the skill? Do you teach it? Do your students recognize it? Essentially, the bottom line is thinking about thinking, and I've got a different definition that I'm going to show in just a moment. But it's where we think about our own thinking, and typically it's also where we can successfully plan, monitor, and evaluate our learning. Do our students, we know, seldom consider thinking about what they are learning. And so then my question is, do we, as instructors, we know that the students typically do not think about metacognition as a skill that or a strength that they have. Many of them actually don't give much thought to themselves as learners. They don't have a repertoire of study strategies that they can refer to. They often don't think about the alternatives that are available to them when things aren't going that well, and they seldom evaluate how they've learned beyond the grade that they receive. And so, as instructors, it's one more piece that we don't really. One more thing that is added to all of the tools, the things that we know that we want to teach them. And metacognition is rarely explicitly taught. So we're going to talk about some opportunities for doing that, maybe in a subtle way, but still getting it for them. So here's a definition. Metacognition is easily defined. It refers to the ability to reflect upon, understand, and control one's learning. Or the definition that we usually hear is thinking about one's thinking. So some awareness strategies are that we need to, some ways of helping students become aware of how they are learning. So one of the suggestions is that we encourage students to express their confusion. If there's something that they don't understand, and we usually entertain questions from students, but we often don't encourage them to talk about when things are confusing to them. And if we can get them to talk about it either through a discussion board or actually in class, if we're face to face, they can interact with each other and discover whether or not other students are also feeling the same confusion, and perhaps even help clarify it. We can incorporate reflective pieces into our classes and into our assignments, because that reflection part and getting into that reflective habit is an important piece. One of the other things that is an extremely helpful strategy is to model the reflective process. Think out loud as we're going through the process. Think about, decide what we do first, what we do next, how we check our work, how we know when we're ready for it. And these items are things that that kind of fall into the expert and novice research, because it's things that, as experts in whatever our content area is, we simply do it and think about what what we're doing about the processes that we do. We often consider active learning as a metacognitive strategy. However, it will only be that way if we include within that, why are we doing this? We have an activity that we're doing. Why? What is it? Why are we doing this? And then what are we learning from it? So we need to provide them with opportunities to think about their learning cycle. This is two articles that I found as I was researching this, and both of them have a metacognitive instrument to provide for the students that will give them a series of questions similar to some of the multiple intelligence type of instruments that you can find everywhere. This is just a series of Likert scale type of questions that provide them, give them the opportunity to think about those skills. And so these are two, and I will we'll send these out to you. But these are two articles that include an instrument that are designed to assess our metacognitive awareness. One of the things in one of the articles that I found is that we need to include transparency as we model these skills. And so in order to do that, we have to be aware of our own processes. Are you able to describe what you do when you synthesize, when you integrate, when you critique, or when you create? Again, most of us are not aware of that. So it means us taking that backward step to really consciously think about what we do during that process so that we can model those steps for our students, and thus creating the mindset. And this is a quote from one of the articles that I read, that creating the mindset for independent and creative thinkers. It's okay to take intellectual risks and go down a path that winds around without necessarily getting any place exciting. Just know that it's okay to wander through, to think about where we're headed with that, and just give it some thought. A winding path, I like that. Relevancy is a means of engaging students in the metacognitive process. So as you're going through the course, making your students aware of the relevancy of the course, have those conversations in class or through the discussion board, the relevancy of the learning goals and the outcomes. We talk about our objectives. Do our students have any idea why we have those objectives and what the purpose is for them? If we share the blueprint with them, they can see those connections, but it's important for them to understand that there is a reason for these things. Again, the relevancy of the readings that we're going to do, relevancy of the assignments that we give them, as well as the relevancy of the feedback that we provide them on those assignments. And the article that this came from indicated that once he had started doing that, with this was from a gentleman who teaches a course for new college instructors, and talking about doing the indicating the relevancy, and the feedback that he got from where where the instructors were doing that was just incredible. He said it's such an important piece of it. And that's one of those things, again, that we often don't think about as we're going through with the learning goals, the readings, the assignments, the feedback. So I'm going to go take us to the Padlet and look at question 2, the reflective strategies that we've used or discussed with a colleague, and then I'll come back to question 1 in a minute, because that's kind of a wrap-up piece. So I will go to my Padlet. And the second one, the reflective tools that we use, and what I have up there is one of mine, and covered up my little, there it is. And I'm going to move that over. So reflective tools that we use. Okay, a plan of attack. Here with the others. Yeah, you want to, oh, yes, absolutely. And one of the articles indicated that when he had, he was talking about a case where it was one of those things that came to him while he was in class, because he asked the question, let me see if I've got that, because he asked the question, bring it over here with me, I don't think. He asked the question about what connection from the reading connects to something that we have already read, and this kind of vague, so sort of answers. And so then he started putting things up on the board. Well, look at this. In Unit 3, we read about this, and then again we saw it in Unit 4, and again in Unit 5. So what were the connections? And this was one of those moments that came to him in class, which things like that often do. But so then they started thinking about those connections, and then when he gave the next reading, he asked them to specifically make a connection between that and something else that they had read. And it was truly a metacognitive skill. Did you want to talk about that, Mary?
Yeah, I feel that if I don't reach that point where I can see across the curriculum those relationships, those links, I don't feel that I have truly learned the content. I have seen when that happens in my class, and my students can actually make that connection.
Yes.
It's like a light bulb goes on.
Yeah.
Like
Don't you love that?
This is actually, and they can talk about it themselves. So for me personally, when I see that happening, then I know I'm comfortable. I can adapt the content, transfer learning. It is up to that point when I'm still kind of in the process. After that point, I can say, I own this. It's mine. Because I can take it apart then and put it back together.
Yes, yeah. So the plan of attack, is that talking about their specific, how they
the plan of attack is basically for me to control my anxiety And it's also about chunking the content into let's say pieces that I can deal with.
Manageable pieces.
Yes, manageable pieces. But it's also seeing how things are connected. If I don't have a plan of attack, it means I haven't even looked at what I am supposed to be doing in a week or 2 weeks from now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's an area I need to put on my work on things. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you. Now let me go back into where we were and from the current slide. And I have to change it again, don't I?
Yes.
Okay. So those are just some of the reflective strategies, and there's some in some of the other articles. And this was something I found when I was looking up student engagement. And of course, this is the type of thing that definitely appeals to me, because I get a lot out of this type of graphic. And so creativity, the collision of ideas and perspectives, authentic opportunities to express yourself, notice, question, and embody, all of those things lead to that whole metacognitive process. So I'm going to take us to question 1 on there. And I will go back in there, but let me give you some background on this and what I do with it. This is a strategy that I've used in both of my classes, but it works better for me in my graduate classes. Mm-hmm. And it came from, I listened to NPR, and several times on there I had heard their comments about a 6-word memoir. I don't ask them to do a memoir of their life, but I do provide them with links to find some of these things. There's I have quite a few links about that. And according to, I guess, popular theory, it kind of started with something that Hemingway was said to do, and there's an image on the Hemingway thing of baby shoes, and the 6-word memoir is what, for sale, baby shoes, never used. And so it leads you to wondering what the rest of it is. And the links that I have are pretty interesting on it. And it is an interesting tool. What I do is have them do a reflection of the course that we have shared, and I actually have posted it with my group right now, my graduate course right now. I did not put in the link to it, but it is an interesting tool. So let me go take you back to the Padlet, and we can talk about it. And so my 6-word reflection of my Thanksgiving weekend was peaceful, family, friends, feasting, and strengthening sunshine. And this can have, that particular phrase could have multiple meanings, because of course we do feel like it is strengthening. However, that's there because Sunshine is the name of one of my cats, and I watched him get stronger over the last couple of days. So I was pleased about that. And then I was going to put a picture of him in there, and the picture that I took is just of him eating, which was a joy for me. But this was another picture that I took over the Thanksgiving weekend, reflecting on the peace that was just literally right outside my door. So you want to comment on yours, Mary?
Yeah, well, family, definitely the time for being together. And then I realized I have such a large family that I may need a bigger house.
Yeah. Oh,
Cooking, I take so much joy in, special meals. I
yes.
love my patio. When the weather changes, it's
Oh,
such,
yeah. It has been beautiful.
yes, love, of course. And I wish it had been longer. It's crazy. So much to do, and then poof, the kids are gone. It's over.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? I never seem to accomplish all of the things that I think
Yeah.
that I have
Yes.
on my mental list. All right. So, um, so as a summary, as a reflection, as a metacognition, a cognitive reflection on what we have done today, we've thought about our own thinking. We discussed what it is and how we go about it. But we discussed the really important piece about guiding our students through the process. And then we shared practices together about different things that we can add to incorporate into our courses and share with colleagues about how to encourage our students to focus on the metacognitive piece because okay. Is it from here? Students become, well, it's not on this one. Okay. Anyway, there's research on what happens, how metacognitive thinking and increasing students' metacognitive skills improves a variety of things, and not necessarily in the way that we would anticipate. So I will share that with you. So, as coming attractions, next week we have project-based learning engagement through involvement in real-world activities. The following week, we have a reflection on the semester, sharing our successes and our learning. And then the last week before the holidays, a really strong, important session on quality matters, how to create the high quality courses that definitely make an impact on our students. So thank you for joining me on this today.